about. I think this just further solidifies the notion that it's just another political game. It's just less than a straight party line vote. I don't think they intended to vote in favor of the bill from day one. No matter what amount of work you put in on it, what changes you made to accommodate them, this bill is not going to be approved in this committee.
With all the amendments taking things out, what do you think this bill, the ultimate goal to accomplish? Since it didn't sound like there was a whole lot of specific details as it did on.
I think it would have kind of put together the law and made the state have some authority to enforce some of the legal or the immigration laws in the country. They're not going to have a chance to do that now, so we'll just have to see what happens with the next person that decides to try to bring this issue up, if somebody does try it in the future.
Something you bring up in another
I haven't even given any thought at all.
One of the major criticisms was that there were a lot of pieces of the bill that were redundant, that were already covered by federal law. What would you say to that?
Well, there might have been some things that were covered by federal law, but those things were not being enforced by federal law. And we needed to try to do something to enforce the law itself, because our federal government has turned their back on the American people. This federal government we have right now has I don't think, has very little concern for what the American people are wanting, the vast majority of the American people are wanting. So I just think we tried to do what we could do to try to get federal law to enforce their own laws, but evidently we still have too many people here that are not willing to do that.
Do you think you were treated fairly by your fellow committee members?
I'd rather not comment on that right now.
You said there were political games. Who do you blame for political games on that?
Well, I think it goes to the top. I don't know where else it would come from.
So when we say to the top, I mean, who do you mean?
You kind of figure that out. Who's the head of the Arkansas government establishment? It'd have to go to the governor. So I don't think the governor wanted this bill passed. He probably did whatever he could do to see it didn't pass, and he was successful.
Do you consider that political games or part of the legislative process?
It could be both, but I think looking back on Arkansas politics over a long period of time, we've seen a lot of things happen in getting bills passed or failed. And I think this was a good bill. I think we've seen several good bills brought to the to committees in this session, and most of them have not gotten out of committees. So you just kind of take that and see what you surmise from that. Because the people, a vast majority of the people from Arkansas were strongly behind this bill, and we've let political power get in the way of doing what's right for them.
I'll say, if not commenting on how you felt you were treated by the other committee members, McKeely's described your feelings about how this entire process went, this being your first bill.
Well, it was tough. I mean, I think next time, if I'm ever allowed to be a freshman again in anything, I don't think I'd try to start off my agenda with a very controversial bill, of course. But again, this is something my constituents wanted me to do. This is something I wanted to do because I really believed in what we were trying to do, and we just weren't successful this time. So we just have to go on from here and see if we can make the best of the situation.
You said it was supported by a majority of Arkansans. How do you know?
Well, I mean, just you ask almost anybody here in the legislature this time, they have been inundated by emails, telephone calls, and it's people, their constituents, people around the state of Arkansas that were telling them they wanted this bill passed, or they wanted support for this bill. And I don't know if that's telling us that some of the legislators up here are not listening to the people, but I don't know what else you might say about that.
Forgive me, because we missed in the beginning you were talking about political games. Could you just restate that for us as far as your reaction to this vote for today?
Well, I don't want to just beat that ground, but I mean, again, we've seen several conservative bills introduced. They go to committee. They seem like they're very sound and solid bills, and all of a sudden the bill never makes it out of the committee floor. I think the people of this state want to see these bills not decided by 20 people in a committee, but decided on the floor of the House and the Senate, so they can they can actually see how the people that they're sending up here to legislate are following their instructions.
Yeah, you said this was a good bill, but there were several changes, several clarifications you had to make to it. Does that hurt your argument that it was a good bill if you had to make so many changes?
It doesn't hurt my argument. The bill was submitted, I think, the earliest submission of the bill was a very good bill. And although I think I would have rather not taken out the prenatal care portion, if it would have got the bill passed, which I was kind of encouraged somewhat that it might have a chance to pass by doing those things. It just kind of goes to show you try to accommodate people and do what they're trying to tell you in the committee questions that they want done, and then they still don't do it. I don't know what you can say to come to some answer on that. I think if that's the case in our committees, if we're going to try to accommodate the people that have concerns about a bill you're trying to pass, and you cooperate with them to the fullest extent you can, and they still won't cooperate, it goes right back to the idea of political games, and I'm saying that's what we've got going on here.
So what part of the bill do you actually stand for? I mean, would you stand for everything that was in the original bill, and if so, why did you allow it to be watered down?
Well, I kind of felt like that if we could get some of this bill passed as opposed to zero, we'd be better off than what we were to begin with. But I, of course, have rather the bill pass in its entirety, and that wasn't to be done. And there were some things in there that just to be honest about, the political subdivisions that I didn't think the city should be responsible for some of the things. And when they brought that to our attention, we was willing to go ahead and take those out of the bills. And there were several things in the bills that once they were brought to the attention, even the prenatal care, which I really had to think long and hard to pull that out. But I was willing to do it to get a bill passed. But again, obviously we see that I'm not sure I can say that was the same feeling of the committee.